when it comes to hiring, specifically, because I think that's what we're talking about here, and running events, is hiring people or utilizing staff, people, whoever, for events that look like you, that talk like you, that are like you. You naturally gravitate to somebody. So her and I had this whole conversation and basically rounded up to the point of saying, I was like, well, how do you get around that?
You introduced me to Shell Lawson, and she
Yes.
focused on like diversity and inclusion. You mentioned that you were inspired by her and her like talk on diversity and inclusion. Can you share like an insight or a lesson from her talk that really struck a chord with you, and like how it has influenced your approach to leadership and even activation?
I don't think inspired is the right word. She got my brain turning, right? I like people that can get my brain turning, because I think it's real easy to see her talking about diversity, inclusion, and you're at a corporate event and you're like, a lot of people are like, oh, here comes another talk about diversity, inclusion. And like, I know all this, I'm going to hire the best person for the job type deal, all that, which I think is very easy for people to fall into. They lead themselves into that, right? I spoke to her afterwards. I only caught half of her talk because I had a call, but I got half her talk. And then that night, I went over to her to just introduce myself and say hello and tell her that I enjoyed her talk. And we just ended up in this conversation. And she essentially said, like, one of the things that people don't realize is that people gravitate to people like them. And when she said that to me, I was like, because I'm a sales and marketing person. And I know in sales, like, people buy from people they like.
Yeah.
People buy from people that are like them.
Yeah.
That talk like them, that have personality like them, that engage with them. And I think you just don't realize, or I don't realize, or didn't at the time. I was like, shit, like that really hit with me. Cause I'm like, okay, it's very easy to fall into, when it comes to hiring specifically, because I think that's what we're talking about here, and running events, is hiring people or utilizing staff, people, whoever, for events that look like you, that talk like you, that are like you. You naturally gravitate to somebody. So her and I had this whole conversation and basically rounded up to the point of saying, I was like, well, how do you get around that? Because it's a natural inclination for anybody, any race, doesn't matter. And she basically said, it's like, well, just find people that you gravitate to that are like you, but you have to remove the fact of skin color, remove the fact of gender, remove the fact of, you know what I mean? All these different things. I was like, that's really
other commonalities.
Yeah. So that just really got me turning and thinking, because I know as a person who hires, I mean, I could say it out loud, but you'd have to come to my company to see how we're staffed, who's here, what kind of diversity we have. Right. So I'm comfortable with it because I know that we have a diverse, inclusive staff, right? But I could say, oh, I hire the best person for the job. Easy thing to say. But when you really start thinking about it, it puts that on you to be like, okay, am I giving this person the same shake I'm giving this other person?
Yeah.
So I think it's just a good reminder. It was a good, like, the way she phrased it to me, I don't know, for some reason got me to think differently about it, for sure.
I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for being transparent, because sometimes people get like really weird around these kinds of conversations. I'm like, bro, if we don't talk about it, like, how do we learn from each other? Like, I mean, as you're sitting here and talking about hiring and building and choosing people who like you're comfortable with, but even though they don't necessarily like look like you or even talk like you, whatever that is. Can you talk to us about how you like help your team members kind of like, or maybe even a client, I don't know, like push past their comfort zone? Because I mean that sometimes you could be really just comfortable by what you're seeing, right? That's the person you gravitate to. But pushing past your comfort zone to like kind of like achieve something extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like, what's the situation and like what approach do you use to kind of like help a client or a team member push past their comfort zone to just achieve something awesome sauce?
It's a good question. I would say that like every person is different when you lead from a leadership standpoint. I'd say every person that works with you, for you, however you want to phrase it, right? Everybody's different. Everybody has different tendencies. Everybody has different hurdles. Everybody has different levels or layers of, you have to get to know to understand people. And then I think once you understand them, I think you can help them get to where they want to go, not where you want them to go, right? So it's like, hey, where do you want to be? Are you happy doing what you're doing? Are you comfortable just at kind of like this pace? Or do you want more? Do you want to be better? Are you open to feedback? Are you, that's kind of getting people on your train to say yes. And then I think it's just a matter of aligning their goals with maybe your goals, or even just, making it more about them and showing them kind of like what is possible for them. Everybody has hurdles. And I think it's also normalizing it for people. You're like, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I'm like, well, hey, I do this, I do this, I do this. So I always try to relate things back to maybe problems that I've had in the past and how I've overcome them. Because I think that people get worried about that. You know, people can be defensive. People can be, worried it may shine them in a bad light. And that's just people. That's just human behavior. So I think if you're trying to help people overcome that, A, you have to make it feel normal that they're not perfect, because it is completely normal. And then B, it's about saying, hey, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And then trying to earn some trust, because when you earn trust with people, then you can say, this is what I think, or this is where I would little bits maybe think you could be better, or maybe where I'd like to see you get better. And I think that people respond positively in that process.